Hi, and welcome back to the Positive Legacy Podcast for Christian Fathers. I'm your host, Dan Hayden. After 23 years in the Army, working with and leading some of the finest men and women that our nation has to offer, I turned to the coaching profession to help me write the next chapter of my life. What I didn't know was the impact it would have on my personal life as a Christian, as a father, and as a husband. That is why I've made it my mission to help Christian men just like you show up as calm and steady leaders in their home and in their workplace so they can build a lasting legacy of faith and connection with their families and beyond. Hey, today we're continuing our series on the sage perspective. Last week, we talked about sage at home, how to bring a sage mindset into bedtime, sibling fights, and those tired moments with your wife. This week, we're moving upstream. We're talking about from provider to present, reframing work stress with the sage perspective. Because if we're honest, a lot of what shows up at home started at work. The short fuse, the checked out scrolling, the tension you can feel in the air, even when no one is saying anything. So many Christian dads carry this weight of being the provider. And that provider identity, when hijacked by your saboteurs, can quietly steal your presence from your family. Today, I want to help you use the sage perspective to reframe work stress so you can walk through the door, not just as a paycheck, but as a present, grounded, spirit led father. Let's start with something that most of us feel but rarely say out loud. The provider script sounds like this: if I don't keep performing, everything will fall apart. My value to my family is what I produce. Once I finally get ahead of work, then I'll relax and be more present at home. That script is usually driven by the hyperachiever, the controller, and the pleaser saboteurs. It sounds noble. It even gets praised by the world. But that comes with a steep cost. Your hyperachiever says, hey, your worth is in your results. Rest is for the weak. Your controller says, if I'm not in charge or on top of it, everything's at risk. Your pleaser says, if I don't say yes at work, I'll let everyone down. When those scripts are running your workday, what's left when you get home? You're physically there, but mentally still in the last meeting. Your kids get the leftovers, and your wife gets the tension you held onto all day. The sage perspective looks at the same job, the same responsibilities, and says, my work is important, but it is not my identity. God is my provider. I am his steward. Every stressor is a chance to grow in trust, wisdom, and presence, not just at home, but at work as well. The sage perspective doesn't downplay your responsibilities. It reframes them inside of God's larger story. Let me share a real example from my own life. If you've served in the military, you know this rhythm well. Moves every 2 to 3 years. And as you climb the ladder, those moves come every 18 to 24 months. Sure, they're easy when you're single, but not so easy when you're married with 4 kids. And every move comes with a new job, a new unit, new responsibility. Every role is a step up, which usually means more people, more pressure, and less time to get your feet under you before you're expected to perform at a high level. For years, I lived in that cycle of constantly proving myself while trying to learn a new job on the fly. I put everything I had into each position, and by the time I got home each day, I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. Maybe it was after a long day of meetings, overnight field training, or just a long commute. Either way, I'd walk through the door, still replaying that day in my head. Hey, did I make the right call in that briefing? Did I just destroy that soldier's career? How am I going to manage this new gig and still be a good dad? On the outside, I was there, helping with dinner, asking about homework. On the inside, I was miles away, still in the office. I was still on email. And my family felt it. My wife would ask, hey, you're quiet tonight. Is everything okay? And I just assumed, hey, she was in the Army. She knows what I'm going through. The kids would act out more because they could feel the tension but didn't know what it was. From a saboteur perspective, the story in my head sounded noble. This is just what responsible leaders do. I'm under a lot of pressure. My family should at least meet me halfway on this. Their work stress was always there. But the way I brought it home was through exceedingly high emotional expectations for my family. I'd walk in the door and without ever saying it out loud, I was basically demanding every kid acknowledges me right away. Everyone should be in a good mood, and no one, absolutely no one, should add to my stress. I never stopped to think about everything my wife had carried all day just to keep the house, the kids, and the schedule from falling apart. My judge was raging. These kids are so ungrateful. She doesn't see how hard I'm working. Hey, I deserve better than this when I come home. Everyone felt it. The atmosphere in our house was like walking on a knife's edge half the time. One wrong look, one delayed response, one small mess, and my internal pressure cooker just went off. Not always in yelling, sometimes just in withdrawal, a coldness, or sharp comments. But PQ, these mental fitness tools, began to give me another option. Instead of letting my judge write the script the moment I stepped inside, the sage perspective helped me see my stress is real, but it's not their fault. My family doesn't exist to regulate my emotions. I can bring calm instead of pressure and perspective instead of criticism. So before I walked through the door, I started using PQ reps and sage questions. It was a few breaths in the car, feeling my hands on the steering wheel, asking myself, what kind of presence do I want to bring into this home? And most importantly, right before I stepped through the door, praying, Lord, help me bring calm and peace to this house tonight. Those tiny shifts didn't change the demands of my job, but they changed me from an overburdened provider looking for emotional payback to a more present, spirit led husband and father who could offer peace instead of adding more weight. Let's ground this in scripture for a minute. Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. That is a powerful call to diligence. But notice, it's for the Lord, not for your image, not for your ego, and not for your saboteurs. Jesus also says in Matthew 11:28-30, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Many of us are carrying a yoke at work that Jesus never asked us to carry. We've added stuff like the pressure to prove ourselves, the fear of being found out is not enough, the belief that our value is in constant productivity. The sage perspective says, my job is a place where I serve God and others, but it is not the source of my worth. I can bring my stress to God and still enter my home with peace. That reframe is not just nice theology. It's a practical mental reset, one that you can train daily. Whether you drive home, ride the tram, or walk a hallway from your home office to the living room, your transition time can become a built-in sage training ground. Most men use that time to rehearse problems, replay conversations, fantasize about escape, whether it's sports or screens or just numbing out. I would like to invite you to repurpose that time. Here's a simple 5 to 10 minute transition ritual built on the sage tools you already know. Step 1, notice the work story. As you leave work or close your laptop, ask, what story is running in my head right now? Maybe it's, I can't keep up. My boss doesn't see what I'm doing. If I don't push harder, I'll fall behind. But just notice it. That's awareness. That's the judge. That's the hyperachiever. That's the controller talking. Great segue. Step 2, name the saboteur. Silently say, this is my hyperachiever telling me my worth is in my performance. This is my pleaser afraid to disappoint people at work. This is my controller convinced everything rests on me. You're not shaming yourself. You're labeling the pattern. This is exactly the kind of work I do with dads in my coaching and in the Positive Legacy Academy. We slow down enough to recognize the mental script that's actually running the show. Step 3, do a PQ rep. Now, instead of feeding that story, you shift your attention. Feel your hands on the steering wheel. Notice the sensation of your back against the seat. Listen to the sound of your tires on the road. If you're in a hallway, feel your feet as they hit each step. Just for 10 to 30 seconds, bring all your attention into one physical sensation. Turn it into a breath prayer if you'd like. Inhale, Lord, you are my provider. Exhale, help me be present. This single act interrupts the saboteur loop and activates your sage brain. Step 4, ask the sage questions. Now, from this quieter place, ask, what kind of a dad and husband do I want to be when I walk through that door? What does my family need from me more than anything tonight? How is God using this season at work to shape my character, not just my career? Let your sage answer. It usually sounds calm, grounded, and aligned with your values. Maybe it says something like, they need your attention more than your advice. You don't need to fix everything tonight. You just need to listen. The stress at work is teaching you humility and dependence. Bring that, not your frustration, into the house. Step 5, set a simple intention. Finish with one clear, concrete intention. Maybe it's something like, for the next hour, I will put my phone away and really listen. When my wife talks about her day, I'll ask one follow-up question before talking about mine. When the kids are loud, I'll see it as life, not a problem to fix. You're basically telling your brain, this is how we're going to show up. By the time you walk in the door, you've shifted from provider on edge to present intentional father. Let me share a quick story from a dad I coach. We'll call him Mark. Mark worked in a high pressure sales role. Numbers, deadlines, constant emails. He prided himself on being a hard worker, but his family mostly got the exhausted, easily irritated version of him. He told me, Dan, I don't want my kids to remember me as a dad who was always too tired or too stressed from work. I just don't know how to turn it off. We started with one small practice, a driveway reset. Every day before he got out of the car, he committed to these things. Take 3 slow breaths. That's 10 seconds, by the way. Feeling his hands on the steering wheel, naming his saboteur. This is my hyperachiever worrying about tomorrow. Asking the sage question, what do my wife and kids need from me most right now? Choosing one intention. I will greet each person by name with a hug or a touch before I even touch or look at my phone. At first, he felt ridiculous. I get it. 3 breaths in the driveway. How much difference could that make? But after a few weeks, he said, Dan, my kids have started racing the door when they hear the garage. And I actually want to be there when I walk in. The work stress didn't disappear. The metrics and deadlines were still there. What changed was his perspective and his presence. That's the sage perspective at work. Reframing stress as a training ground for deeper presence and trust. Here's why I care so much about this. Your kids are learning from you what it looks like to carry responsibility. They're always watching, so act accordingly. Does dad come home crushed and angry? Or does he come home tired, but still kind and present? Does work get all his energy while we just get the scraps? Or does he treat us like we matter more than his inbox does? Your sage perspective at work doesn't just shape your career, it shapes your family's experience of God's provision and presence. The world will tell you your family needs you to be successful. Scripture and sage perspective say your family needs you to be faithful and present. Work hard, be excellent, use your gifts, but don't sacrifice your presence on the altar of your performance. Hey, as you head into this week, let me leave you with this. Where does work stress most often steal your presence at home? Is it in the car before you walk in? Is it at the dinner table? Is it when the kids are loud and you just want quiet? Pick one of those moments and make it your sage training ground. Again, pause, name the saboteur, do a 10-second PQ rep, ask the sage question, take one small sage-led action. And remember, even if you just get through 1 or 2 of those, you're still moving in the right direction. Thanks again for listening. And as always, if what you heard today resonates, share this episode with another dad who needs hope. If you want to go deeper, check out the show notes for my Positive Legacy Academy, which is my signature program that helps men like you do all the things we talked about today. Stay rooted in grace, stay open to God's gifts, and keep building your legacy one fresh perspective at a time. Talk to you again next week.